What's good people, and welcome to the Silly, Nerdy, Sometimes Wordy podcast. I'm your host, BK. This is episode 1, film production, a fan's perspective from page to screen, part 1, development and pre-production. Before we get started, I do have episode 0 out, which is a quick intro about myself and this pod. So please check it out wherever you get your podcasts. Now, let's get into this film production, talking about this development and pre-production of this process. Let's start with a few terms. A script. Script is a written document that details the narrative and visual elements of the film with dialogue between the characters. That is basically your story that is written down or typed out on page about what your story is going to be about, at least a rough draft of it. Now let's go to the screenplay. The screenplay is the script of the film that includes the acting instructions of the characters, that includes the movement of the characters, with the props within the scene and with other characters in the scene, as well as blocking. So that is your script. Now has action and things of what you're doing with other characters within your story and things that they're doing. So actions that they're taking from the director. So they can say, hey, say this line. Once you say this line, or as you're doing this line, stand up and pick up this prop, or stand up and throw this prop, or shoot this basketball if it's a sports film. So actions that you're doing while you're saying your scene. So that's a screenplay. We'll get to other terms as well. Now, at this point in the process, the development phase, you're creating your story. You are developing what this movie is going to be about. A lot of things that's happening here. Of course, priority number 1 is 1A, I would say, is writing your story, making sure you have your beginning, middle, and end. Who your characters are and what you want them to be, and the different relationships that they have with the other characters within this movie and their story, and you have them, fleshed out and ready to go. Of course, you're going through multiple drafts of your story. So the first thing you write is not going to be what ends up on screen. So you're going through multiple drafts of your script and your screenplay. As well as you're also, as you're doing that and finalizing that, you are creating storyboards. So this is another term. What is a storyboard? A storyboard is a graphic representation or illustration of how your film or TV project will unfold, shot by shot or scene by scene, which is in a bunch of little squares that have pictures in it, some thoughts or words of what's happening in each scene, almost from beginning to end. So this is something that you're also developing, creating while doing your script as well. So that's something that's happening as well. And then also, you're also thinking about who you want to be in this movie in terms of the actors and actresses and the look and feel. So you're going through that process and trying to at least put together a list of people who you want to be in this film. Also, this is where a lot of your research takes place in terms of your story. If you have to go and talk to experts from different time periods on different subjects to figure out, how you want to include and, of course, give credit to them. And so you are creating your story, you're doing your research, you're thinking about who you want to be in this film. And then you get to a point where you're ready to go to a film studio to get this movie made. And so, or pitch this film to a studio. And you take your plan into how this is going to be. So when I say studio, this is the studio that is going to release the film. So when you see an opening, when you're at the movies and you see the opening credits and you see, its screen is going black, they're showing all these credits and you see the movie studio. When I say movie studio, I'm talking about Warner Brothers Studios. I'm talking about Universal. I'm talking about New Line Cinema, DreamWorks, Lionsgate, Disney, Walt Disney. All these different types of studios, and there's many others. Those are just a few, to name a few of them. So that you're pitching your idea to them. Say, hey, I have this idea for this movie, or I have this book that I want to interpret into this movie. So you're pitching your plan and how you want to do it and who's going to be involved. And also, this is one of the main sources of how you're going to pay for your movie. So this is one source where you get your money to pay for this movie. There are other sources you can get money to pay for it, but this is one. Unless you're going to do other things like do this independently on your own, possibly crowdfund or get tax incentives or grants. But this is, for the sake of this conversation, this is where you want to get your money from to get this made. And this, the money that pays for everything, that pays for the actors, your film, your crew, special effects if you have it, the travel, the lodging, all the people that are involved, especially if they're building sets. So you need to get your funding for your film because you need to have money to make your film. So you pitch your idea, you get in front of these executives, and hopefully they say yes. Go ahead with this movie. We agree. You take some notes from them, and then you move forward. You have been greenlit this movie. And when I say greenlit, that means you have the go-ahead to make this film. And there is most likely some type of written agreement, contract with all the details that are involved in what you're going to be spending and what you expect what you expect to make from this, as well as the profit and the revenue, so that you can make back the money that you spent on this movie. And possibly, if depending on your story, if you want to make a sequel, if you make enough money, then you'll be able to make a second movie and begin a franchise. Also, while you're doing this, in your pitch, in your idea to the studio, you possibly talk about, this is a small thing, but I feel it's important, about logos and product placement within your story, whether it's within the dialogue or using actual products or placements. For instance, if this film is using iPhones, you got to get some type of deal worked out with Apple or Verizon or T-Mobile or Adidas or Dell, whatever type of computers that you're using, especially if it's like a tech film or law enforcement, whatever it is, you are working out some type of deal with that company so that you can use their products in your movie, and so they can get something in return. They're getting advertisement because a lot of people are seeing this. So now that I think about it, that's not a small thing. That is an important thing. So working out deals for product placements, computers, technology, phones, clothes, whatever it is. So you're getting that worked out as well, in conjunction with the studio, as well as the companies that you're using their products in your film. Now let's move on to the pre-production phase. Pre-production. So at this point, your screenplay and script, they are, that is pretty much finished. But at the same time, you can always make changes, a few changes here and there. But this is where you're revving up to filming, to getting the cameras rolling. So this is where a lot of more planning takes place. This is where you are starting to, let's talk about the cast, your characters. This is where the audition process is taking place. And one term that is important to know is a casting director. That is one of the credits that you'll see at the end of a movie, the casting director. So, who is the casting director? The casting director is the person that's responsible for assigning the roles in a film or TV show, the production. And that's the person that goes out and does these auditions, or have the actors come and do the auditions, whether it's in New York, LA, London, wherever it may be. Also, it's not just, most of the time, it's not just the casting director and no one else. It is a collaborative effort. In addition to the casting director doing these auditions and callback for these characters, for these roles, this is in conjunction with the director, as well as executive producers, people from the studio, to see if they want this person to be in this role. So they're doing that as well. So a lot of times, obviously, they'll put out audition calls for, hey, we're doing this role. But also, the director and producers / studio, they may have somebody in mind. They're like, we're not doing audition calls. We know we want this actress to be in this film. Like this, we have this idea for her. We think she would be great in it, or he would be great in it. So they're going to target, sometimes they target someone because that's who they want. And sometimes it works out that they get who they want. Sometimes it doesn't. But also at the same time, they do go through audition process, and you still have to audition for the part and read for the role. Especially, you need to have that chemistry with your lead character, your two main lead characters, because if that doesn't work, the film doesn't work, and the audience is going to see that. So the audition process takes place during pre-production, as well as location scouting. Location scouting is looking and going to different places within the country, here in the US or globally, to see where your story is going to be. You have your story written, so now you're going to these different places or around the world to see, can this story be here? Is this going to work? The type of place it's going to be. Is it going to be in a grassy lands? Is it going to be in a forest? The type of buildings, the type of streets, the type of culture and things surrounding that. Do you need to go overseas? Do you need to go into specific countries and certain venues? Also, certain areas in terms of getting permissions to go into these places, to film in these places, and sometimes to temporarily shut down areas, streets to film. And also you'll have to get permissions from governments to say, hey, can we film in this place? And is this going to work for you? You come to some type of agreement, as well as within location scouting. Many times, one location can be used for multiple uses, for multiple locations. For instance, let's say you go to, I don't know, Bangkok or something, or Japan or whatever. That location can be used for different uses within your film. that location can be used for 3 different countries in one film. Also at night and during the day. So that is also something that kept in mind. Addition to location scouting is sometimes you may not go on location, or you may go on location in addition to filming on a sound stage in a lot, whether it's in LA on, let's say, Warner Brothers lot or Fox lot. So you can film on a sound stage or on location. And within this pre-production process, you're trying to figure all that stuff out. And you're also having you're developing your film and crew, and as well as the audition process with the cast, in terms of getting all these people in all the different departments. You're getting your film crew together, like who's going to be in your safety, your stunts, who's going to be building and designing the sets. Now that they see your script and that they see your vision, so now they have to start to design this stuff, and then eventually get the men and women who are constructions and can build and design these different things, these costumes. So you're getting all of that together, from hair, makeup, prosthetics, which is kind of the same thing, as well as trainers, experts from different disciplines, especially if your character has to be, a trained assassin or a trained fighter or multilingual. So you're getting experts to teach them how to speak in different languages, dialects, fighting, handling different weapons, dancing, swimming, being a cop, being a Navy SEAL, or being this world-class dancer or rapper or musician or whatever it is. You're getting experts from different disciplines to train your actors months before, sometimes maybe even a whole year in advance before you start filming. So you're getting those experts from those different fields. Also, while in this pre-production phase, you're creating your filming schedule, your shooting schedule, in terms of how you're going to film, what scenes you're going to film on what day. So you're developing that, as well as call times, which something we'll get into later on when you're on set and ready to film. Another thing you're getting, when I say in terms of getting all the film and crew together, second unit directors. Second unit director is a person that is in charge of the film's secondary crew and second camera unit under the direction of the main director of the film. So the main director of the film is obviously directing and filming, but he or she cannot be everywhere at once. So many times you'll have your main director filming, let's say, in Los Angeles, and your second unit director can be filming, let's say, across town in LA, or just on another set within the same area, or in a different state, in a different country, or back on the soundstage. So his or her job is to film that scene or scenes in a different location simultaneously while the main director is filming somewhere else. Now, of course, the main director will be able to view what he or she is filming as well, and they'll kind of collaborate to say, okay, this is good, this is not good, let's change this. So that is one of the people that you get in this process of pre-production. So there are many other departments like safety, music, what artists you want to have, or the producers, the music producers, the scoring of the film in terms of getting the music, sound effects, visual effects, The camera operators, cinematographers, very important. You gotta put it on film. Security, transportation, catering. The film, the cast and crew. Everybody needs to eat. Costume design, your stunt team, stunt choreographers, stunt doubles. You got to get a visual effects, special effects department who's going to be doing those visual effects if your film requires visual effects, because not all films need visual effects. Sometimes you just have a good story that doesn't require too much. If you have a good story, you just film it with no special effects. You just people and crew. As well as getting all of the materials that you'll need on the set, especially if it's a massive film. For instance, Lord of the Rings. Those were massive movies, and all the costumes that were needed, all the swords, all the armor, the helmets, so many of those things are needed, and all of that stuff costs money. And so you have to get people that are making those items. So you're getting all of that stuff together before you start filming. So that is all those things are important, as well as figuring out building your sets, which I may have mentioned, but building your sets. How much of it is going to be built? Can you are you going to build your set and it's going to stay where it is? Or are you going to transport that set to a different location? And so that takes time, as well as not only designing the set, building the set, and then transporting the set. And then once you get to your location, you have to take those things out and put it where it's going to be in that new location. So those are a lot of the things that are needed. What else can we talk about? Let's talk about authors. Authors are probably involved as well. Well, they are involved in the development phase. It's more particularly when I talk about authors, they are that is where the source material is coming from. So if you want to make a film and turn that book into a film, 99% of the time you're going to have the author, 100% of the time you're going to have the author involved. They're going to have to be okay with it. For instance, there's a lot of books that have been turned into movies. Things that come to mind are, like I said, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, the Hunger Games movies, the Divergent movies, the Twilight movies, and many Harry Potter movies, those films, as well as Fantastic Beast. And then we can talk about TV shows like Game of Thrones, House of Dragon. So you got to have the author involved, and he or she is involved, as well as adapting the story into the screen in terms of screenplay. There is some involvement, some more than others, but that is someone that is involved, well, basically in most phases of the production process, pre-production process. So those are some of the things that are involved in the pre-production phase. And so I'm just looking over to see if there's anything else that I can mention. What else can I say? Also, assistants. A lot of departments have assistants, and different roles have assistants for them to help them complete their job. So I'm pretty sure that every role, a lot of roles have assistants for them to complete their job. Also, let's go back to the casting a little bit. When you're casting, depending on the film, if you have children involved, kids involved, there is a little bit more to it. So not only are you casting those kids, they're reading for roles and they want to be actors and actresses too. But depending on the age that they are, well, if they're, from grade school to high school and possibly in college, there is a whole nother aspect of it that you have to account for. And that is the kids they're doing their job, they're acting, but they're still in school. So you have to work out an arrangement with their school and parents and or guardian in terms of how they're going to complete their schooling. And most of the time, well, it just depends. So sometimes they can leave set and go to school and fly back and forth to do that. Or you can have the material and maybe a tutor or assistant or someone bring their material on set, and they spend X amount of hours focusing on their schoolwork and completing their exams and then sending that back to the school. So they have to make sure that, these kids are still getting their education and doing that. So they're kind of doing a lot themselves because they're focusing on their schoolwork, but they're also focused on their lines and doing their acting job. So that's something that's a small fact, but that's something that you have to keep in mind, depending on the film and the role. So they're doing that in addition to being in this movie. So that is a lot of the things that happen in pre-production. And that's a good chunk of what happens. Of course, I didn't mention 100% of every single thing that happens in pre-production and development, but I would say that's a nice chunk of things that happen. There's some things that I probably missed, but those are the things you need. So it's all about planning. It's almost like when you're doing a film, particularly you're the director, that you're almost like a project manager when it comes to being a director. And that's a whole nother topic we can get into, because there's so many moving parts to being a director of a film that you have to have your hands in. And of course, there's delegation involved as well. So it's a huge overtaking, but if you love it, then it's not an overtaking. And before we end today, let's talk about one more thing, which I mentioned before, which was visual effects. But let's talk about previs, as they say, pre-visualization. And that is the visualizing of scenes or sequences in a movie that is filmed prior to shooting the film. They say before you get your actors and actresses involved. A lot of times, depending on your story, I always have to preface it with that, you get a team of actors or stunt performers, and you need to film a particular sequence or action sequence, and it's almost like a rough draft. You film what your vision is, what you want that to be, whether it's just an action fighting sequence or there are cars involved, or maybe you do it basically with toys or clay or stock draft. You film that, and that's just the idea of it. And then eventually you will send that to your special effects team, as well as you have that footage, and then you bring it to set and say, okay, this is how I want this scene to go. And then from that rough draft footage, that gets fine-tuned and added, or things are removed, or in terms of how you want that scene to be. And a lot of times when I'm watching the behind the scenes special features, you'll see the previs of the scene, how it was, and then on the left side. And then on the right side, you'll see the final product of what the scene is. And you'll see the foundation of that previs, and then you'll see the final product. And because you gotta see it and then adjust it. And so from the time that pre-visualization is shot to what you see in the final product, a lot of things have happened and a lot of collaboration, and whatever safety precautions need to be taken into account, that is also factored in as well. All right. I think we've come to the end here of the development and pre-production part of film production. So I'm breaking this up into two parts. So we will talk more about this subject. The next time we will be talking about what happens on set when cameras are just about, if not ready to roll, as well as the post-production part of the process, bringing everything together, and then going into the marketing and release of the film to the point where we, as film fans, go pay our ticket, depending on where you are, and go sit down and watch the movie. So we've come to the end, and one takeaway. So what can you take away from this pod? The takeaway that I give to you is when you're at the end of the movie and you are standing up, getting ready to leave, and as you see those credits rolling down, or if you're waiting for a post-credit scene, those names that you see rolling down, in addition to the actors and actresses, they are just as important as the lead A-list actor, actress. Because without those people being a part of this film, the film does not get made. They all have very important jobs, whether it be small, big, in between. Without them, the film doesn't get made. And a lot of times you hear the actors and directors talking about, this was such a great set, the film and crew and cast and crew, everybody was got along, such a good vibe on it. Or unfortunately, some instances you hear, sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes it can be toxic. But those are very important people that you have to have in order for the film to get made. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, they are very important, and they also have their own unions as well. Each of those different departments, like the actors have their union, producers have their union, which is, I believe, is the Producers Guild of America. The actors have theirs. So like I said, they're very important. And that is my takeaway. So those other folks are just as important, every last one of them. That is the end of episode 1, film production, a fan's perspective from page to screen, part 1, development and pre-production. Until next time, we will talk soon.